signed on and said hello to you, and you commented or noted what I was wearing, and what we call it around here, we call it the buffalo plaid. Of course, a lot of us will refer to it as the Acadia plaid because it is, sort of straight off the Axeman and Axewoman's back. But you were able to fill me in with a little factual information, and I'm going to ask you to share that with our audience.
A little known fact, that plaid, which people always refer to as lumberjack plaid or woodsman's plaid, the correct title for it is indeed Rob Roy McGregor tartan.
Well, there you go.
There's a small world.
Fortuitous that I chose to wear this for this interview today. That's incredible. So listen, we're gonna start with a couple of just casual warm-up questions, and I'm gonna ask you the first one, which is a pretty general one. Where were you born and raised?
For once, I know the answer to all the questions, unlike many moments at Acadia. Born April 14th, 1964 in Halifax.
All right, and where do you currently reside, Rob?
I'm just on the outskirts of Halifax in Rockingham.
So you went far.
Yes.
Do you know what? Have you ever been to Scotland?
Oh, yes, indeed. I was over there a couple years ago. Sadly, my aunt passed away, and my father and I went over to visit and deal with the family home. So I was over there 2018, I believe it was.
Nice. So obviously not for the best reasons, but always nice to make a pilgrimage home and sort of take care of family business, I bet.
It was a bittersweet moment, but it was an adventure nonetheless. Good to see the homeland.
Wonderful. And what part of Scotland?
Helmsdale.
Okay. All right.
Northernmost tip on the right-hand side.
Northernmost tip on the right-hand side. I'm trying to envision it. Sounds pretty good. I think I've got it roughly.
20 kilometers. Here's another factoid. 20 kilometers below Caithness, the birthplace of Alexander Keiths.
There you go. Now you're talking my language, Rob. So I've only been to Scotland once, but certainly all kinds of reasons to want to return. I have an uncle.
My parents were from there.
Nice. Absolutely. My uncle is in St. Andrews. So there you go.
Wonderful.
So let me ask you, let's go way, way, way back. What made you decide to go to Acadia University?
That's a really good question. I have always enjoyed going down the valley. My parents brought me once down there for a weekend when I was about 10 maybe, and something just clicked, and I thought I loved the atmosphere, knew nothing of university, loved the atmosphere. Then in high school, a friend of mine, Kent McLaughlin, his cousin played basketball for Acadia, Cliff McLaughlin. We went down to see him when we were in high school and spent a weekend at Acadia as high school students, and that sealed the deal.
It's interesting you say that, Rob, because the words you used there were something just clicked and something, it just sealed the deal. And you know what? It's difficult for us at Acadia to try to put that into writing and into words when we're using, creating our recruitment material. But you've nailed it on the head. It's something that you can't really articulate. Something just happens when you visit.
When I went to that very first event I was ever at Acadia, it was a basketball game in the old gymnasium. And I went in the crowd, I just thought, this is fabulous.
So, you know what? You then, as we all know, went on to contribute to that. So without getting into the huge gist of the conversation here today, so that's sort of that bigger story that we're going to ask you about, tell me a little bit about your first few experiences once you became a student at Acadia. What are some of the things you remember?
Oh, crystal clear, my first day. This sums up Acadia's spirit completely. I took our old family Land Rover to Acadia, filled in my horse tack box, my worldly possessions, left Halifax, went into Windsor to stop, and I think grab a coffee or something. When I went out to the old Land Rover, it wouldn't start. A famous occurrence. So I was in Windsor, stuck, and I decided, do I go call my parents to go back home, or do I continue on to Wolfville? Right then and there, an old Oldsmobile pulled up and a fellow got out and said, "Where are you going?" I said, I'm going to Acadia. And he said, me too. He got out a rope and pulled the Land Rover. We jump-started on the highway, and I followed him to Wolfville. So that was spirit beyond belief.
That is incredible. So you landed in Wolfville, and where did you live? Where was your first residence?
Oh, all 4 years were spent in the hallowed halls of barracks.
No way. All 4 years.
All 4 years.
That's unheard of. Unheard of that somebody would move into residence in their first year and stay in the same res for their entire duration. So it must have been something about the res that you appreciated.
Oh, fabulous. Friends for life.
That's awesome. So you know what? I think that's going to come back in a next question that I'm going to ask you. So, and you know what? You and I talked about this, and I said, okay, how do I sum it up? And you said, you know what? Just ask me. So how did it all begin, Rob?
That's the most interesting question of all. The very first inklings of this was as a summer student before going to Acadia in the fall. That would have been my second year, 84. I worked at Citadel Hill as a 78th Highlander animator, which gave a good role of recreation and such. There was an ad on Q104, a mock ad that was for the Pope visiting Halifax, which he did in 84, as kind of a mock commercial for a rock concert. I think I sent you a link to it. And that sort of struck as that's kind of funny and that's kind of fun. So after the Pope had been to Halifax in 84, that summer, I thought, well, I'll do it for a football game. Didn't quite make it to the first attempt to do it. There was a delay. Just pause right there.
Probably right on cue.
So the second attempt, people said, don't do it. Nobody will understand. It's too far after the date. And when I went in this basic recreation of the Pope outfit, I went in and everybody stood up. And I thought, well, there must be a touchdown. And I'm looking the field to see where the touchdown was. And no, it wasn't. It was the arrival. And this just started it. And then there was a phase of also past the Pope, where before the term crowd surfing came up, there was passing the Pope, which I was always very worried about when I got to the back. But luckily, knock on wood, nothing ever happened bad. So it all started there.
Oh my goodness. I remember pass them up. I was the one who worked campus security and made sure that folks who were being passed up got passed up safely. Of course, we don't do it anymore, but so there you go. I did not know that. I will now remember that, past the Pope. So talk to me a little bit about some of the highlights. So my understanding, because, if I didn't have an opportunity to point it out now, I sort of do now. This was well before my time at Acadia, so I didn't get to see any of it. Little dig
my
there.
My first year was 83, September of 83. And this all started in the summer, the fall of 84 is when it started, and right through until the very end. And it started off as just really a method almost to get into the game without paying admission, which then just continued on in various guises, and it became a matter of trying to outdo the last arrival. And at first it was just somebody from residence. I believe it was Phil Muse from barracks who came with me in his farming coveralls as one bodyguard, and me with I believe at the time was my roommate's bed sheet and dress shirt on. And from there, the outfits maybe got a little bit more correct, and the entrances became a little bit more elaborate.
So pick your top two elaborate entrances. I need to know about some of these.
Oh, well, number one, as far as I think the pinnacle was definitely the helicopter. That was a moment in life that I'll never, ever forget.
So listen, folks on the line aren't going to know even what you mean. So you need to tell us exactly how that went down.
That's been asked of me many a time, and now through the blessing of technology, it's great to be able to tell people it's on YouTube. If you were to go to YouTube and look up Acadia University Pope Tour, up will come the helicopter. So it was captured on video, and it was a remarkable event that it actually happened. And I don't think in today's world it could ever be allowed again. It was a very lucky event that we were able to get the helicopter. It was the second attempt. The first attempt was for homecoming in what year would have that been? 1986, possibly. And due to the weather, it didn't happen because there was a fog bank over Mount Uniacke. But the second attempt was for Mount A playing Acadia in November, I believe, of '86, and we got the go ahead, which is another very, very funny story. But we did do the helicopter, and that was the top arrival. Second one, we had a number of limousines that we used, and I used my dirt bike once. Hadn't warmed it up enough. It was a little cold, so it didn't perform as best. Somebody put the national anthem on as I started my bike, so I had to stop it, listen to the anthem, and start it again. That mechanically didn't help things. Police, we had the Wolfville Police bring us in once. We had an ambulance. Tried to get horses, but we couldn't get enough horses. So we had quite a good run of entertaining entrances.
I would say, and I say that some folks on the line, I suspect there's a lot of people on the line who are from your era and just happy to be able to see you on screen and tell your stories. But for those people who are on the line who don't know, I mean, yes, when Rob says a helicopter, they literally landed a helicopter on the football field, and Rob and his guard, who we will talk about in a moment, emerged from the helicopter and started the football game. So to your point, Rob, you're absolutely right. We don't land helicopters on the field anymore.
That's too bad.
It is too bad. But we also don't pass the Pope up the stands anymore either. So
that's good.
So that's great. Police cars, ambulance, and sort of just getting the crowds ready for what in those days, often turned into a really great game. I don't know if you know, but we had a throwback earlier this afternoon and showed the 1981 Vanier Cup game. So that was a nice little blast from the past as well. So I mentioned the guard. You mentioned in the first couple of attempts that you had one or two people join you, but then you got very, very official, did you not? So who did you have as part of your entourage?
There was a great cast of characters, all from barracks. Barracks was a great training ground for all security. We had quite a repertoire over the years. There's a picture that sometimes pops up now and then. I think there was about a dozen or so from all parts of Canada. So it wasn't just friends from one neighborhood or one floor in barracks. It was people from all across the country. Dozen, I would say a dozen at least.
And so do you still keep in touch with those folks?
Oh, I keep in touch. We have technical assistants today. Some of the guards, Isaac Hasham's here today. Some of the guards over the years were Gord Alcorn, Chris Berry, Dwight Patterson, Huey Kerr, Steve Irvine, Cameron McKean we had as a guard. Who else? Rob Fenimore, Jeff Scales, Carl Chason, Kevin Hasham. We had quite a repertoire. It was a core group that we had with some revolving in and out folks over the years also. So it was good fun.
I've seen some pictures, and your guard were all looking very well, looking in their best bib and tucker, as we would say.
Yes.
So, and I remember meeting probably, again, as we would say in Newfoundland, a good jag of them a couple of homecomings ago. I think you had probably your best turnout of a Pope and the Guard reunion, maybe last homecoming or two homecomings ago.
Yes.
So I think the last question that we'll end off with, Rob, the Pope, is to ask you what your affinity or your relationship with Acadia looks like today.
Oh, it's a love affair that'll never end.
What a great way to say it. A love affair that will never end. So do you know what? I'm going to take a second here. I'm going to go a little off script and ask if anybody on the line would like to ask you a question or just a little shout out hello. If you do, there's a chat function typically on the right hand side of your screen. So if there's anybody who's on here who would like to say hello or have a question, I'll pause for a few seconds or fill the airtime for a few seconds and see if anybody has a question. So when's the last time you were on campus then, Rob?
Oh, would have been homecoming last year for the wonderful event that, thank you, Oonagh, you helped us put together in the faculty lounge.
That's right. That's right. And
That
so
was wonderful.
what was your reaction this year when you heard that we would be having a virtual homecoming? I don't like to say we're no homecoming because I've seen that around and I'm like, you know what? It just looks very, very different. So what was your reaction when you found out that it would be from a distance that we were having homecoming this year?
I knew it would happen. I knew that the Acadia spirit of homecoming would never end. Given a pandemic, that's nothing. We'll still do it.
Absolutely.
Virtually, you know, and it's small groups will get together. It'll always happen. Nobody will ever stop an Acadia homecoming.
Exactly. And our history is rich and deep and steep. And you're absolutely right. We've had some curveballs thrown at us over the 180 some odd years, and we're not going to stop now. I appreciate that passion and enthusiasm.
I think next year's homecoming could be one for the record books.
I think you're right, because I think there's a lot of energy and passion that has filled this year, and there's a lot of reunions that were put off this year and that will happen next year. So it may all come together in a, as we would call, a perfect storm next year. I've just got a comment from the side that says, shout out from Calgary, Rob. It's Gord, and he says, happy homecoming and see you next year.
Excellent. We'll have the bus and all get together.
Wonderful. Listen, Rob, thank you again so very much for your time today and for agreeing to have a quick chat with me virtually during our Homecoming 2020.
My pleasure. It was an absolute joy. And to do anything with Acadia is always a dream for me.
Amazing. And you can thank your tech support. Tell Isaac I said thank you as well. And we will see you both next year, if not before.
Thank you, Oonagh. Thank you, and good luck tonight.
Thank you very much. Stand up and cheer, folks. Have a great rest of your homecoming weekend. Bye.